My name's Scott Acord, and I'm here with my colleague, Patrick Nickel.
It's Nickel.
Patrick, we have only met online. We previously started a conversation about you being raised in foster care. I want to revisit that. Tell me a little bit about how you ended up in foster care.
Just this past Monday, I began the process of digging through approximately 2,250 pages of paperwork I got my hands on from my dependency case in the state of California. And I thought that's where my story started. I came across some information that there was an open dependency case in Maui. I don't know quite yet how I came to be in foster care. I'm reading the narrative of what's in the San Diego case files. The incident that seems to have kicked it all off is that my mom, who was suffering from addiction and alcoholism, she just left me in the car with the window down and walked away. I think that is what opened up the dependency case in Hawaii. I can't say that with 100% certainty.
How old were you?
1.5, maybe 2. My sister has her own story of her experience through foster care. We left Maui. I have a strong suspicion that the allegations against one of my parents stemming from the dependency case in Hawaii was why we came to California. So they were sort of running, and it wasn't very long before there was an open dependency case in San Diego.
Were your parents together at this time?
I laugh as a form of catharsis. Within just the last 8 days, I've read so much. It is a roller coaster. They got married where I was born in 79. They were divorced, I think, a year later. They just couldn't quit each other. But they were gasoline in a match. And I can see through these court papers, they were on again, off again, I think, till the late 80s. And then they finally stopped.
Did you have other relatives, like grandparents or aunts, uncles in Hawaii?
Yeah, we did. My paternal grandparents had moved to Hawaii. They had purchased land on Maui before it was the tourist destination that we know it to be today. Gosh, I was just doing this research. I was counting the placements I was in foster care. And from 84 to 97, I was in roughly 41 different places. The real world effect of that is I pretty much spent my entire 20s bouncing from one place to the next.
What's your first memory of foster care?
My first distinct memory was coming back from Taco Bell with my sister and CPS being there to take us away. I had this far too advanced perspective at 7 following a supervised visit with my mom at McDonald's that I was going to spend the rest of my childhood in foster care. It was this almost cinematic moment where I remember looking up in the sky, seeing stars, and just having that moment of, this is going to be my life. And the 7-year-old shouldn't be having moments like that.
A 7-year-old sitting in McDonald's usually is having a pretty good experience.
Yeah, those supervised visits were never good experiences because the social worker is watching both the parent and the kid like a hawk. It's the epitome of awkward.
When you began to look at the early foster homes you were in, can you tell me about that experience?
I have my memories of them. Now, having started that process of going through the paperwork, is kind of like, here's my memory of this foster home, and here's what the foster mom had to say, and the foster dad, and the social worker. And so the stories that were being shared with the social worker were not full truths. Because I have some memories of definitive abuse that I don't see in the paperwork anywhere. But I see that it says that my foster father slapped me. What the truth was that their biological teenager son punched me in the stomach until I vomited up my dinner, and I was thrown and locked into a closet overnight in my clothes, had urinated and defecated on myself. Thankfully, when I didn't show up for school the next day, my teacher had raised a flag and raised an alarm. The police came. The social worker had been placing an excessive amount of children in this foster home for profit for the foster parents. And I don't see any of this in the paperwork.
How old were you in that moment where you got punched by a foster brother?
I was 6. Reading is what saved me. Scott, I went to 7 different high schools and I only went to high school for 3 years. I didn't even graduate high school. I will tell you, I did go on to get a GED and I have a bachelor's degree.
If a kid hears this story and he or she or they are being bounced around, what should they know?
The one thing I would say is you can make it through this.